Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
An economic collapse coming soon. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, Like Diamonds, back again with Salt Strong Unchurched. I'm back from a week of vacation / family reunion on my wife's side, so it was a little bit different. There was 94 of us there, and boy, we had a great time. And I say boy just because I don't know anyone else that has 90-something people that show up to a reunion like that. Of course, it was in the Panhandles and the beach. It was fun. A couple crazy things happened. One, I'll apologize. One of the most recent podcasts here about breathing. So the last person that recommended the book had told me the book was called Breathe. And so I'm not that bad at spelling or grammar. And so in my head, if you don't know already, I completely butchered the name. And the name of the book is Breath, not Breathe. And for some reason, I think because I had heard it first the wrong way, maybe like you did, that my brain was just automatically seeing it the wrong way. And so my wife saw the podcast. She's like, "You really called it Breathe the entire time?" And I was like, yeah. And it was too late to take it down. And at some point, you just got to laugh at yourself. So I'm sorry. I apologize if I screwed you one up or if you couldn't find the book. I said it wrong the entire podcast. So one, she called me out on that. Two, with 93 people, you can, from all over the country, I mean, from LA to Ohio to North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia. There's family members all over the place. My wife's side of the family, they grew up in Pensacola. She went to Pensacola High. So they kind of started there, but is now spread out everywhere. And so 93 people, there's a lot of different people. We've met most of them over the years. And on the way up, we had a long drive from Winter Haven. And my wife and I agreed, like, hey, let's, with this many people, let's just make sure we don't talk about politics at all. And we're not the type of people that normally do anyways, but we were just like, hey, let's just not talk about it. And the second we get there, no lie, like we're literally going up the elevator of this condominium that we're all staying in. And one of her family members that we hadn't seen in 6 years and barely even recognized him, he gets in the elevator, sees us, and he's like, "You won't believe what just happened. Trump just got shot." So that literally happened within the first 5 minutes of us being at this place. That was all live that Saturday. So anyhow, you can only imagine there was a lot of conversations going on about it, and which leads me to this podcast. So while at the beach, personally, I love the beach. I love the pool. I love going down there. We did a lot of fishing, but I do a lot of that stuff early in the morning. And by the middle of the day, I mean, unless you're in the pool or the ocean, it's just so hot. And doing that for 7 days straight, there was a lot of downtime. We were coming in the AC, getting lunch, just kind of chilling. And, on your vacation too, I'm doing a little bit more on social media. And I guess a couple days after that whole shooting incident, the internet was kind of, at least my internet feed and Instagram and stuff was talking about this prophet who had predicted that Trump was going to get shot in the right ear, was going to fall on the ground. I mean, literally called it almost word for word. I mean, eerie stuff. And he did this back in March of 2024. So in 2024, he said he had a vision from God and from an angel that specifically told him that Trump was going to be speaking. He didn't say like at a specific rally or anything like that, but Trump was going to be speaking, and it was going to be before he was president. So this was, some sort of speaking engagement on his road to trying to become president, and was going to get shot in the right ear, but not killed. It was going to, skim his right ear, and he couldn't even tell in the vision. It was busted eardrum. He said, I see blood on his right ear. I see him going down to the ground, holding the ear and having blood all over his right hand and his right ear. So once again, he posted this on YouTube in March. And so I don't know if you've seen this or not. If you haven't, it's really wild, and it's kind of gone viral. Obviously, a lot of people picked it up. That at the time, people probably thought he was a whack. Now it's like, oh, okay, this guy had a pretty wild, clear vision. And so yours truly, once again, is on vacation, had a lot of extra time on my hands, and in between reading and kind of chilling with the fam. I'm like, let's see what else this guy has on his channel, if he predicted that so well. And he's got a lot of stuff. Some of it fluff that never happened. Some of it that has. I mean, he actually back like a year ago predicted that Biden was going to drop out at the last minute and it was going to be a female. He didn't say who, but I mean, all the stuff that's happened, pretty eerie, right? So you got to give this guy a little bit of credit, regardless of what you believe in prophets and all that stuff. He's got two things that he's nailed on the dot. And by the way, he did say, and Harris has not announced who her mate is as I'm recording this, but he did say that this one's a year ago that Biden was going to drop out and a female was going to be the next running potential president, and that her running mate was going to be another female with short blonde hair. Okay, so for whatever that's worth. So anyhow, I'm now going on to his other videos, and there's a lot of talk about an economic crash. Even in that longer form video, it was like an hour podcast or whatever he did back in March that talk about the Trump thing with Trump getting hit in the right ear in the blood. He talks about an economic crash, and I'm not talking about anything that we've lived through. I'm talking about Great Depression or worse. So as you can imagine, that's like, okay, that's pretty in depth. Meaning not anything close to what we went through in 2008. That was honestly kind of a joke compared to the Great Depression. If you really look at it, even the COVID thing, super scary. But in the big scheme of things, kind of a joke. If you really look at the Great Depression numbers, I mean, it lasted almost 9 years, 25% unemployment or more. I mean, the suicide rates, the amount of people that, went homeless, that were starving in food lines. I mean, it was something that we've never seen before. 2008, 2009, that felt bad. COVID felt bad. None of it felt great, but this is to a whole nother level. And what he's describing it's pretty scary and frightening and eerie. And I'll be honest, I got caught up in it. And so I'm kind of freaking out. I'm like telling my wife, and she's like, all right, calm down. Like just some guy saying his opinion. I was like, yeah, that's the same guy that, that predicted Trump was going to get hit in the right ear with a bullet. Like, you gotta at least listen to him. And my wife's a whole lot better about not getting caught up and emotional in some of that stuff. And so anyhow, I'm delving into more over this break. And I'm really, really getting caught up and a little bit just kind of freaked out and, like, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen to us? And are we going to be okay? And looking at finances and all that stuff. And I don't know what it was. I don't remember the specific time or when it happened, but I was just kind of laying in bed, and I felt a little bit of a peace after being freaked out the whole day before while I was on vacation. And the more I thought about it, while I was at the beach that day, I was like, you know what? Out of all the podcasts I've done here, I got to basically take some of my own medicine here. I talk so much about fear not, right? About don't get anxious about things that haven't happened, right? And even let's go a step further than that. How many times I've talked about some of the toughest things in my life, like the 14 years of daily anxiety attacks, right? Going through the cancer, the deaths in the family, all the things that have happened that were not great by any stretch of the imagination. However, as you've heard me discuss them over the years of Unchurched, I quickly say there's some of the best things that ever happened to me. They grew me as a person. They made me stronger. It was almost like God getting me geared up for the next thing, right? Even to do this, right? Had I not gone through some of those trials and tribulations, I never would be doing this Unchurched, right? I know I wouldn't be doing it. And I remember this guy, I can't remember his name. And I apologize, but he's an author, and I listened to his podcast, and it was about fear in general and how we grow in bad times. And he said he was speaking to a group of college students, and college doesn't even matter, but it was college students here in the past few years, and he was talking about the potential of, let's just call it, economic collapse or a massive bubble bursting, et cetera. And he says, all right, guys, I want you to raise your hand if you believe that we're now better off as Americans because of the Civil War. Meaning, are you glad that we had to go through that tough period of time to help to get to where we are today as a civilization? And 100% of the people in the room raised their hand up that yes, they agree that was something that America needed to go through, regardless of all the lives that were lost. It was a massive movement, towards doing the right thing, right, with ending slavery, and ironically, it ended up uniting our country in a different way. That took a little bit longer, obviously, after the two sides hated each other for so long, but it was something that needed to happen. Just like my anxiety attacks or cancer, any of the bad things we go through, they don't feel great at the time. Yet, when you look back, I'm like, yeah, I needed to go through that. That was exactly what I needed to get to this next level. And so, same college kids, same speech. Right after he just asked that question, he says, all right, well, who thinks it would be good if we went through another one today, like right now, or in the next couple of months, another massive civil war, if it helped us to get to a whole nother level? And not one of them raised their hand. And he's like, that's interesting. So you're telling me you see how impactful it was, how it literally changed and shaped America a long time ago, but you don't want to go through it yourself today, right? Because it makes sense. It's how humans are. We fear that stuff because, yes, a lot of people did lose their lives. It was a painful time in the country. Yet at the same point, it did bring us closer together. It fixed some of the problems and some of the systematic, massive issues that we had with slavery, et cetera. You could point to a lot of different things that our country and people in our country have had to go through that did ultimately turn things into a positive, right? I mean, it's part of transformation. And so all that being said, one with just the fear and anxiety, I just started kind of diving back in the Bible, and lo and behold, as I've shared before, I read that daily Bible, and one of the very first verses that next day was about fear not. And then another one was talking about anxiety. And why we shouldn't have it and not letting it control our lives, especially over something that hasn't happened. So even if this prophet is 100% right, and there is this massive economic collapse, one, we're all going through it together. Two, I don't believe God would let us go through that, just like, the 1930s when we had the Great Depression and it even turned into a war. I don't think God would have allowed that to happen if he didn't know that it was going to have awesome consequences on the back end in terms of uniting our country and propelling us forward, which it did. And so I don't know, it just sat so much better with me, and I still can get a little bit freaked out, just being honest, especially if you watch it. And if you're the one that tends to get really wired up about it, maybe you shouldn't go watch it. I won't even share the guy's name. But all that being said, I think even at worst case, it is a good time to just check your finances. Make sure you're not living too large. I do feel, regardless if that guy is right or not, that the chances, like if I was a betting man, the chances of us getting into some deeper recession compared to where we are right now, where I'm recording this, is probably better, right? If I was a betting man, I would bet that we would be in some sort of recession over the next 18 months compared to us growing and having massive employment, like meaning, more and more people employed and more productivity and more consumer spending. It just seems like there's so many things working against our country, our world, our society, our globe. everything just seems like it's on edge, right? From politics to imports and exports to people to social media. There's just so much hatred. And even if you look at the songs, I saw something recently about just the amount of songs that have come out here in the past 12 months that have either the word hate or anger or something like that in them versus, love. And it's wild how you can kind of track that to how just the sentiment of people are, right? I mean, most songwriters are talking about how they're feeling today and things they're going through right now. Really, really fascinating stuff. But I don't know, I just started sitting better with me. And I really just had this peace about it where I said, you know what, God, I'm going to trust, just like I had a job and lived through 2008, 2009, like a lot of you did. I had investments that tanked. I had a house that tanked in value. I mean, so many bad things. What I thought at the time was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But man, looking back, like that was something I'm grateful I went through. It prepared me for where I am today. It helped me become a whole lot smarter with my finances and my investments. That was at the time where I bought a house with hardly anything down because everyone else was. And lo and behold, what do you know? The market tanked and I went negative and had to pay for that. I was one of the people that did not walk away from my house, and was fortunate enough to have cash to be able to eventually sell it, and had to pay money. I had to pay $36,000 to sell my house. And even the attorney, it was a female, she's like, I haven't had anyone that's come to the table with cash to sell their house. Why are you doing it? And I was like, one, I'm blessed that I have the money. And two, if I don't do this, I lose my license. And because I was licensed in all 50 states in the financial services field that I was in. And lo and behold, a year later, I had the opportunity to run my own company doing all that. At the time, I was still working for the man, if you will, for a corporation. And I ended up getting the chance to leave and start my own company. And had I not had all those licenses, which, by the way, you automatically lose if you file bankruptcy, you have liens on your house, basically foreclose and walk away on a house, I would have lost that entire opportunity. So I know God was blessing me in all of that, and ended up making up the 36,000 and a whole lot more by doing the right thing. And I'm not saying anyone did the wrong thing by walking away, especially if you didn't have the money. If you didn't have the money, you didn't have it. I happen to have the 36,000 in my bank account and was able to pay that. But all that being said, I had a peace over it, looking back at all the past just tough times, from economic times to personal times, that God has always been there for me. It's a good reminder to keep praying and not being focused on YouTube videos from whether it's prophets or whatever it is. Just to have that time with God, to trust in Him, that if we're doing the right thing, if we're trying our best, our morals are set right, all of that we are going to be taken care of, that we're not going to just be put out on the street. And know too that I don't know where you stand personally in terms of finances and all that, but there's so many hundreds of millions of people out there that have way less than me, that I know I still had the opportunity to bless. And I do believe, like with any economic downturn, there's always going to be ways to make some money still. There's always going to be jobs to be had. It's not like even in the Great Depression, it was, even at its worst, 25% unemployment. That means the vast majority of people were still employed. We're still had jobs. We're still doing things. We're still productive, and still adding value to the society. And I don't know, just all of that stuff gave me peace, especially after watching that video that absolutely kind of freaked me out when you hear about it. Because once again, no one wants that, right? No one, even if you talk to my grandfather or either my grandparents, who lived through the Great Depression as youngsters, and which ended up becoming the greatest generation, as Tom Brokaw talked about, and they all would have said, yeah, that was one of the best things. It did unite their families. It got them really close. It got them frugal. It got them resourceful. I mean, it absolutely molded them in a really fantastic, amazing way. And I don't think they would have won anything else, right? It made that generation the greatest generation for a reason. And so if, worst case that does happen, that'll essentially be like my kids, if you will, that would have had to watch their parents really, really, really cut back and be resourceful and save things. And that's honestly not anything that most of our kids have had to see, right? We've all been pretty blessed. No, for the most part, most people living today, that have kids and still have jobs and stuff, we didn't experience the Great Depression. Yeah, there's certainly some older people that are still alive and maybe listen to this that were alive during that time. But, you know what I'm saying? For the most part, the vast majority of Americans have never really lived through anything like that and have never really lived through multiple world wars and drafts. I know Vietnam obviously was there, but for the most part, the majority of America, especially anyone 60 or younger, which is the majority of America, we're pretty blessed. We've had pretty good economic times and have not really been kind of pushed that way. So I'm going to embrace it either way. I'm going to pray daily that it doesn't happen, but that if it does, that it is God's will and that he's going to take care of his children, like myself and like you, and that we're all going to come out so much better because of it. So stay tuned for more on this. I wanted to share what was on my heart. Like I said, it's been a wild week there in Perdido Key, Florida was where we were for that reunion. And also I pinched myself on how blessed we were, even though it was my wife's side of the family. That is pretty special that 94 people from, a couple 1-year-olds all the way up to some in their late 80s were able to show everyone, got along, only talked politics for about a day or so in the very beginning. And that kind of died down and we're all out fishing and on the beach and going shell hunting and going out to dinners. And it was really, really special. And so I will say too, do that kind of stuff with your family. I noticed, there's a couple who have passed in her family that these reunions have been going on for many, many years. And I've been to a few of them. And, there's been people that have passed. There's a couple that I'm just guessing, at least one in particular that probably won't make it to the next round. And so that those times are so special, especially to bring everyone together around a fun place like the beach, even if it's every 3 to 5 years. That's really, really, really special. So I would encourage you to do it. It kind of got me excited to maybe do that on our side of the family, which we have not been great about doing on my side. So love you guys. Hope this was helpful. And if all this does come to fruition, meaning some economic downturn, collapse, whatever word you want to use, I hope this podcast is a good memory and just kind of serves as a reminder that God's got our back, that he doesn't want us to be anxious. He doesn't want us to fear. He wants us to stand strong and to look past the smoke, if you will. All right. Because regardless if there is one, or regardless if it lasts a year, or 18 months, or 9 years, that's all just smoke, right? As long as we're still alive through it, we can only come out stronger. We can only come out more resourceful. We can only hopefully come out more united as families and friends and communities and neighborhoods working together. And if it doesn't happen, gosh, I hope we still do all that anyways, right? My intuition says just because of how divided we are, you almost kind of need something bad to happen. I hope it's not a massive economic collapse. I hope it's not a civil war. I pray it's not. But then again, I go back to what that guy said as he was speaking. 100% of people said that, the Civil War and Revolutionary War, I mean, all these things that we've been through were necessary and ended up propelling us to a better place. And yet none of us want to experience it today because we don't like that pain. So I'll leave you with that. Love you. I love your feedback on this. I know this was a little bit of a different podcast. And you hit me up, joe@saltstrong.com. Otherwise, I will talk to you on the next Unchurched episode. 'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.